What is the difference between influence and persuasion? Is there a difference? If so, what is the relationship between the two? Today, we're going to discuss how we can get a little bit better at influencing and persuading. Stay tuned. I'll give you the skinny. Now, many people interchange the words influence and persuasion. Although there are a lot of similarities, there are also some nuanced differences. And if we can fully understand those differences and the relationship between the two, then we can get better at both. Persuasion is short term. It's what are the tactics we're going to employ right now to get someone to take action? How do we change their train of thought? Whereas influence, on the other hand, is a longer term thing that has to do with trust and foundation and demonstration of abilities, right? That's where we change someone's belief. So changing the thought process is persuasion. Changing the belief system is influence. Maybe this will help make it sense. Maybe this will help it make sense. Let's say we're going into a meeting with a customer today. The things that we do in the meeting, the tactics that we employ, how we get them to make a decision, to buy something, to do something, that's persuasion, what we do in the moment. What we did the weeks, the months, and sometimes years leading up to the meeting, building trust, establishing a foundation, demonstrating our knowledge, that's influence. So obviously, the more influence we have, the less persuasion we need. Let's talk persuasion. According to Dr. Robert Cialdini, there are 6 shortcuts, 6 universal principles that guide human behavior. And if we can master those and implement those in an authentic way, we drastically increase our ability to persuade. Those 6 shortcuts are reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and consensus. First shortcut or universal principle is reciprocity. People feel obliged to give back in the form of a behavior, a service, a gift that they received first. You get what you give. The key here is that whatever we give is personalized, it's unexpected, and we give it first before they give us something. Shortcut number 2 is scarcity. People want more of those things they can have less of. The key here is that when we make a proposal, we have to point out what is unique about our proposal and why it needs to happen now. We also want to point out if they don't accept our proposal, what might happen or what bad would happen, what would the loss be. Third shortcut, authority. People follow the lead of credible, knowledgeable experts. The key here for us is that before we make an attempt to persuade, we have to signal to others what makes us knowledgeable, what makes us the expert. Fourth shortcut is consistency. People like to be consistent with what they say and do. We've always done it that way. That's the way we always do it. So with this principle of persuasion, we have to go back and find a time where they actively or voluntarily made a commitment to something similar. And then we have to link the two together. Shortcut number 5, and my favorite, liking. People like to say yes to people they like. We all like to be around similar people. We all like to be complimented. That's universal. When we're using this principle of persuasion, we need to make sure we can find something similar, something common. Maybe it's a goal, maybe it's a mutual interest that we can agree on and move forward on. When we can do that, we demonstrate likability and it's easier for them to work with us. Because at the end of the day, all things being equal, people do business with people they like. All things not being equal, they still do. The 6th and final shortcut is consensus. When there is uncertainty, people look to the actions and the behaviors of others to determine how they're going to act. A perfect example of this would be a Da Vinci 360 meeting or a Connect meeting, right? We're going to bring some folks in, have a little bit of uncertainty, and we're going to show them the actions of others who are just like them and what the results of those actions are, and let them make the connection. So in this principle, we don't have to rely on our own persuasiveness. We can point to someone else like them who did what we want them to do and rely on that to persuade the customer. Ooh. Let's talk influence. Our ability to be influential solely depends on our capacity to manage the perception of our abilities by others. In other words, if we have a high level of influence with a group, it's because they trust us. They recognize our abilities, our skills, our knowledge. If we have a low level of influence with a group, it's because they haven't yet recognized our abilities, our skill sets, our knowledge, and they probably don't fully trust us. Here's an example. Let's take for instance, I'm preparing for a 100-mile race that's in 6 months. There's another person that's preparing for that same race on the same date. Now, let's suppose my coach, Liza, is going to try to influence both of us or persuade us to use her training plan. Now, if she comes to me first and says, Duke, here's your training plan for the race, I know she's run that race before. I know she's built 4 years of training plans for me that work. I know she knows my abilities. I know she knows what days I want to run on. All she's got to say is, Duke, here's your training plan. I'm going to say, Roger that, and I'm going to implement the training plan. If she goes to the other person who is preparing for the same race on the same day that has the same amount of time to train and says, here's your training plan, the person doesn't know who she is. They're not comfortable with her yet 100%. She doesn't know their abilities, so she's going to have to persuade in that instance. She's going to have to use some tactics in the moment to convince that person to use her training plan. Whereas with me, she has a high level of influence. She's just going to say, do it. Okay, so how can we be better influencers? Got 3 things for you. Number 1, build a foundation. Number 2, follow the platinum rule of influence. And number 3, propel it forward. Generate momentum. Okay, the first one, building a foundation. The first thing we need to do is know our natural tendencies, our natural tactics. How do we try to get people to do things? Do we use data? Do we use fear? Do we try to bribe them? Do we use facts? Do we use emotional heartstrings? What do we do to convince people to do things, right? If you don't know what that is, then think about the last time you tried to get somebody to do something and how you did that. Or you can reach out to those people around you that you trust and ask them what your reputation is for convincing people to do things. They'll probably give you an honest answer, and that should give you some insight into your natural tendencies and your natural influence tactics. There are also 3 terms that we can use when we're talking with other people, specifically when we're in meetings, that increases the amount of safety in the meeting and decreases the stress and commitment. That first phrase is what if. What if removes the ego, reduces the emotion, and it puts both people in a non-threatening area where they can just brainstorm for a solution. Okay, the second term or phrase we can use is, I need your help. When we say I need your help, it engages the subordinate in a temporary transfer of power. It allows them to think at a higher level and behave differently. Third phrase we can use is, would it be helpful if? This instantly shifts the focus from the problem to a solution or a positive course of action. The second thing we could do to be better influencers, second best practice, is always follow the platinum rule of influence. The platinum rule of influence is influence others the way they want to be influenced. Now there's 3 basic ways, and these come from the Center for Creative Leadership. Head, hands, and heart. The head is rational, logic, facts, and data. The heart is emotional. How is this going to impact other people? And the hands are the connection. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. I help you, you help me. Third and final best practice to be a better influencer. Now this is the easiest, but also the most overlooked. Propel it forward and generate momentum. Show them they made the right decision. If we say, if you do this, that's going to happen, then we need to be able to show them that that actually happened and connect those dots. When we do that, we increase our level of influence, trust, ability, and it makes it easier for us to influence this customer, this person in the future. That's all I got, folks. But before you go into your next sales call, I want you to think about those 2 or 3 persuasive techniques that you're going to use and make them part of your pre-call plan. Practice them. And also, before you walk through the door, think to yourself, how does this customer want to be influenced? If you do those things, then you will be a little bit better at persuasion and influence.